Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. This is Megan, and I'm here tackling something today that every artist face, and those are creative blocks. You know the feeling when you sit down to paint and nothing comes to mind? You may have a glimmer of an idea, but you may just be like, where do I start? What do I want to do? And it happens to the best of us, but don't worry. By the end of this video, I'm going to leave you some actionable strategies to break through those slumps and rediscover the joy of painting. So let's dive in together. So the first thing I want to talk about is starting small. And it's about setting small, achievable goals for yourself. Now, we all have different lifestyles, different things are going on in our lives, and we all have different times where we can dedicate it to painting. I get that. And sometimes when we think about goals, we get stuck because we feel overwhelmed by the idea of creating something perfect. Is it going to be worth my time? What am I going to get out of painting this thing? And I just want to just address that head on. And we have this idea in our head that we want to create something perfect, something that's going to add value that we could either sell or give away or just appreciate. But sometimes with art, we have to experiment and think outside the box. And it takes practice, slowing down and trying new things to figure out, well, hey, I like doing that. I want to do more of it. Or I definitely don't like doing that. I'm not going to do that again. So, in this conversation today, we're going to talk a little bit about you don't have to create a masterpiece every time you pick up the brush. Now, I started my paint and sip company 7 or 8 years ago, and the more I practiced, the more I started painting, the more I got familiar with different techniques, things I liked to paint, things that I didn't like to paint. Now, I was doing a lot of team building classes, and I was really getting familiar with topics I enjoyed, subjects and themes of compositions, and other things that were just hard. Example, animals can be really hard for me. You may be really good at painting animals, right? So we're all so different, but it's always fun to think about, like, how can I just start small, practice maybe acrylics with small brushes, or practice using acrylic paints with certain types of compositions. These are those small, smart, achievable goals you can play with just doing. So let me show you an example of that. I haven't done a lot of abstracts. Abstracts can be just like throwing some paint on, having an idea or an inspiration. And I went out to the dollar store and I got some of these mini panels. And this was low cost. I maybe give myself 20 minutes to play and paint. And I played with acrylic paints and I played with using some ink pens. I played with water. And I started with an idea, something visually that I saw. And I had an idea of my head about how I could take this to just be playful, to say, hey, what if I try doing an abstract? Small scale, right? I'm not going to spend a ton of time. And this was a really fun experiment because it's something where I love bringing a little bit of water into the game and I love using inks. And those are things that I've learned about myself over time. So that's such a really cool example because, one, you don't need to start and do something big. You can just take, 15, 20 minutes, have an idea, set a clock and just go for it. So I always want you to think about the goal here is progress and not perfection. Is there things I would do differently next time? Absolutely. But you can think about what you learned from these experiments, what you want to do more of, what you want to do less of. Maybe you try it on a larger scale next time. All those are little things to consider. The next thing I wanted to talk about is seeking inspiration. So inspiration is seeing things around you that may perk your interest. For me, sometimes it's colors, color palettes. Maybe you are shopping in a store and you're like, I love this. Maybe you take a picture of it because you're like, I love how the blues and the reds and the greens go together. Maybe I could do something with that creatively at home. So it's always really fun to think about, how can I be inspired by those things around me that I could bring into my own creative practice, right? Because we're all practicing and having fun, that we can interpret to our future projects. Now, one of the things that I've always really been driven towards is nature, being outside. So I live in a place where there's mountains, there's green fields, there's flowers. It may be for you, it may be a city setting with a beautiful, a small park. And maybe that inspires you. So we all live in different places. We're all inspired by different surroundings. But go outside, take a walk, see what inspires you. Think about colors and patterns and shapes. And look for unexpected textures like the bark of a tree or the water ripples on the water or shadows on the tree. We all know when we go outside at different times of the day, whether you wake up with the sun and you see how beautiful it is in the morning, or that late afternoon sun, 4 or 5 o'clock, where the sun is kind of golden and you notice the difference in the trees, you notice how it cascades different lighting. So lighting is another piece of inspiration that you may want to bring in to your future work. So I would encourage you to, if you can't get outside, no problem. You can always browse through photographs that you may have taken in the past. You can always hop onto Pinterest, and Pinterest is a great place to create a board to draw together inspirations, again, around color palettes, themes, or techniques that you just want to explore. I will drop a link into the description below of my Pinterest page. I started my paint and sip business, again, 7-8 years ago, and I've created a Pinterest board over the years that has over 1,000 ideas that I share with all of my customers to get them inspired about what their group may want to paint. Now, I do my private paint classes for teams on the side, and then I'm here on YouTube offering you different advice and ideas. And I lead my public classes for folks like you, where you want to just paint for fun at home and join with us. So that's where you can follow my YouTube page to figure out how you can get access to the tutorials and my live events that are available virtually, which is really fun. But the Pinterest board, I'll include a link. You can take a look. That's another great place. Use what I've created to inspire you, and so many ideas there. But you're going to figure out what styles you want to play with. Is it something more simple? Do you like some of the more macro examples? One big flower versus lots of little flowers in a field. So those are all things that you can play with and figure out on your own. But my Pinterest channel might be a really big help for you. All right. So the next topic that we're going to talk about is a community. So here's another secret to staying inspired, is being a part of a community of people that also like to paint and love to think creatively. Now, again, we all have different times in our lives, amount of time in our life where we can actually dedicate to painting. So maybe like Sundays for like an hour, you take that time for yourself. If creativity energizes you, which it certainly does for me, I could not imagine not being as creative as I am in my life today. But I encourage you to think about how a community could support you, and what does that even look like? So art doesn't have to be a solo journey. Joining and participating in online paint challenges, participating in a community, like an example, like my Patreon community that I have for artists that's free to join, it can prompt you to do more of the things you love to do, and for yourself to make time for it, because that's one of the most difficult things. So there are a ton of different platforms out there that offer different types of challenges. And the approach that I've taken for the artist community I've created is fairly laid back. I do 2 virtual paint classes a month, and I offer different tips and tricks throughout those classes, but we're really showing up being our authentic selves. And there's no pressure to do one thing or another. It's just really about for you to challenge yourself where you want to be challenged. In my classes, everyone uses different supplies and materials. So we use a lot of acrylic paints as an example, and we also use watercolors. I got this really basic watercolor set off of Amazon. I'll drop a link down in the description below so you can see what it is. I think it was like $13, maybe 13 to 15. I've used this so many times, and it still has a lot of life left to it. The top of this is actually kind of like a palette well tray, so I can mix and blend different colors. So for my art classes, I encourage you to show up and try different mediums. So you could show up with acrylics one week, And maybe in the next class, you're like, Megan, I want to try watercolors. Yes, you do that. Um, Another really fun medium for you to try as you think about, eliminating blockers is buying some really fine tip markers that you can do some outlining or some additional detail work over. So that's a really fun thing that shows up in an artist community. Other people besides yourself are considering what materials to use. Maybe you've always wanted to try watercolors and you just haven't made the time to do it. It's a really good opportunity to try it because it's a lot of fun. And sometimes we do watercolor dedicated classes too. But just thinking more broadly, joining a community, um, it's a fantastic way to meet others and share ideas and to keep each other motivated, really. And it's amazing what happens when you're a part of a supportive community. You will push yourself further and you'll have a lot of fun along the way, believe it or not. So let's wrap this conversation up. You're thinking about what more you can do. I would encourage you to start small, seek inspiration from your surroundings and the world around you, and don't underestimate the power of a community. Creative slumps are normal, but they're also temporary. So, with some of the tips that I shared with you today, you'll be creating in no time. So, I encourage you to review these tips. If you have any questions, please let me know. But I hope you found these tips helpful, and let me know which in the comments which one of these may try first, or it's something that may have resonated to you. I'd love to hear that. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos. You can do that right within the YouTube page here. And if you want any more personalized guidance, check out my live painting classes. And again, those details are in the description. But thanks again for watching and happy painting, everybody. Take care.